Legends, happy Sunday. It's been quite a while since we've had a chat with Matt, so I thought we'd come back and chat to somebody who I'm particularly fond of. He's a long-term OMR client, bloke by the name of Matty Day. If you've been around OMR for a while, you've definitely seen Matt. He's probably helped you over an obstacle or encouraged you on a trail. And what you might not know about Matty is he's had a bit of a turbulent journey over the last couple of years from where he started to getting into the sport to just recently completing his Brisbane Trail Ultra 110K, which was a huge achievement. So I wanted to bring Matty on just to have a little bit of a chat, um, just to learn about his journey and perhaps you might be able to pick up some lessons for your own journey. So, Matty, how are you, man?
Yeah, good mate. How you doing yourself?
I'm good, I'm good. Sunday afternoon, it's just started raining here, so good time to
Yeah,
be inside and have a chat.
yeah. It's
What's
just picked up rain. I picked up wind here.
what's happening for the day, man?
I've been at the moment just been moving house, so I've been packing everything up at the moment, popping it all into storage because I don't get access to my new place for another week. So having to get everything done nice and early, and yeah, the last bit of stuff's gone to storage today. So the next week is going to be nice and relaxing.
Nice. Well, this would be a welcome reprieve from moving. That
Oh,
is
definitely.
probably the worst job going. I'm just going to share this live in the event, man. So just give me 1 sec if it looks like I'm a little bit distracted. I just want to share this
Okay,
vid.
good.
There we go. If you are watching, guys, give me a hashtag live, just like Dominica has from the lounge room. Donna Veering is here as well, saying, "Hey, Matty, you legend." Sean Lusham saying, "Hi, Matties." Fonzie saying, "Hey, guys." Hashtag live. And yeah, if you've got any questions, guys, let us know. So, Matty, if I'd say almost everyone who's on at the moment, I think we've got a couple of people jumping on. Almost everyone would know who you are, but for anyone who doesn't know who you are, give us a little bit of background.
Yeah, it's easy. So I'll start with what I do for a living. I am a partner in an IT business, and we now operate in the city. We're transitioning out of what used to be the managed service provider industry, where you basically like an outsourced help desk, to more of a technology services partner, where we actually work more as a VCIO, VCTO, with businesses, helping them improve their overall business efficiency through technology.
Cool.
So we sit closer in the business than what we had previously. Um, so yeah, we're going through a bit of a transition process with that at the moment, and I've had to step up as managing director to go through all the changes there with a few opportunities that we got present at the moment. So it's yeah, a good bit of a challenge to step into again, and yeah, we're doing a lot of different really cool things that we're yeah got lined up for the future.
Nice, man. And you're obviously a lunatic obstacle racer. Um, you've been in the pink jersey for a while. You've picked up a couple of age cat podiums while you've been with us, but I think you were taking them out before you were working with us from memory.
Yeah, I
How long have you
think
been obstacle racing?
um, I did a couple of tough mudders across over the years for a few years ago, but they were just for fun. Then I did my very first, not competitive way. I did not my very first competitive, but just more of a friendly wave at the True Grit 2019. So I joined in. I did that on a Saturday morning. Absolutely loved it, and signed back up for two more laps the next day. And so I was like, I had a lot of fun there, but managed to give myself ITV. I gave myself a really bad ITV issue that day, and took me about 13 weeks to recover from that. But yeah, then I did a Raw Challenge after that, then Gold Coast 5K sprint, and then down to Bright to do the 10 and 20K Super and Beast
Cool, cool.
before joining in the yeah. Then my first competitive wave actually was at Stadium, Melbourne last year.
Marvel. Were you with us then?
No, no, it wasn't. So I saw
Oh,
you
sorry.
guys all in a superhero costume, but no, I
No
didn't.
worries.
Wasn't actually wasn't part then.
Cool. How'd you go in that first competitive play?
That was awesome. I did not know what to expect, honestly, doing that with what it was going to be like, how I was going to go, and who I was actually racing against. But I managed to take out first position in that wave, which is pretty cool. Came up against Morgan, and yeah, since then him and I've been in a good little battle and in
Yeah.
racing.
He's looking pretty fit too. He
Oh,
was looking fit at Port Stevens. I don't know if he was at Sunny Coast. Don't don't think so.
yeah,
But
yeah,
he's
he was
looking
at Sunny Coast as well, and yeah, he's starting to scare
yeah.
the shit out of me. So it's good.
Keep you on your toes for sure. Sarah's just
Oh,
joined in.
oh, that's it.
Gary Barnett's here as well. Um,
Oh,
so you've had a pretty good run in OCR. I think since that Marvel Stadium, you've probably been at the top of your or around the top of your age cap podium. I think in every race since that I've seen you at.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and obviously you've moved towards the longer distance stuff. Tell us about that.
yeah, yeah. That one's a bit of an interesting one. I never set out to do long distance, or even short distance. Just joining in was never actually the intention of getting competitive, but um, I just enjoy that competitive aspect and what I was learning from um, doing all the different races. That the longer distance gave me a lot of different lessons that I was like a lot of good learning lessons that I was really just getting really curious about. So I kept finding that doing those longer distances made me work and think in a certain way to, which also helped for the short stuff. But it was just a um, really good challenge
Yeah.
that I found out of it. So it was,
How
yeah, it got me interested.
and obviously the big one is the BTU 110, but you did the 24-hour enduro in March, True Grit. Um, I did pretty well there. I think you didn't quite do as many Ks as I thought you were going to do there. I think your groin flared up. You had a couple of
Yeah,
cramps.
hip flexor there. So that just caught on fire and yeah, couldn't keep going. So 14 hours in, it just that was hard, but yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
once
happens.
once something grabs, like once something cramps, it's pretty tough to come back from that.
100%. 100%. But
Um,
it was good though. Getting up the next morning and having a bit of snooze and then getting back out again and that pain just sitting there, but just marinating through it and just yeah, getting out for another final lap. Just while we're there, you got nothing else to do it.
may as well, may as well. So you've had a pretty interesting journey, and it's one of the reasons why I wanted to chat to you. Um, I think on Australia Day we did a bit of an ultra run around Brisbane, and I spent a bit of time walking and running with you and chatting just about some of the things you believe in and some of the sort of ideas you had about values and stuff like that. Um, which is definitely going to be interesting for people to hear. But where do you want to sort of start with your story and the journey that you've had recently?
Um, I guess what I might do is start with the race itself, then
The
explain
BTU,
because that the BTU and
sure.
explain the lessons that helped me get along to actually that drove me to do it and how that actually all the lessons that came along with that. Um,
Cool, cool.
yeah, so so that race was I was thinking about doing it, but I wasn't fully convinced to do it. Um, then I signed up to it a couple of probably about 7 8 weeks before doing it, and just thought I went through all the just different checklists of what to do to get prepared for it, all that sort of stuff. But then yeah, I got a message from Andy saying, yeah, have you got your pacer all sorted? I was like, what do you mean? Need a pacer? And he's like, you have to have a pacer last 20K. I was like, oh crap, here we go. It's only this is on the Wednesday, a couple of days beforehand. so, so I got myself in a bit of a bad position there with the race and managed to get in contact with Gary, who was able to, um, yeah, he was kind enough to help out with doing with being my pace, but also was willing to help with the pit crew as well. So yeah, he was awesome to absolutely jump in there and help out with being the pit crew. And even the night before, him and I were having a good chat about what to do with the race, how to plan that all out, and what to expect, and how to be smart about the race, and all those awesome tips there to get out on course. And that's kept going all up into the morning, where he kept us all nice and rugged up just before takeoff. So we got out, so it was nice and warm. Andy was there. He was been around for about half hour, 40 minutes, I think, or so, and he was freezing his nuts off. Um, just, so thank Gary for giving us that bit of a heads up for that one. But
Yeah.
then jump out on course. Um, jumped out with just got off to a nice slow pace. I was running with Nick the whole time. I met Nick actually at the um, Sunny Coast Spartan, and him and I had a bit of a chat there. Then we spent the next 50 odd k of the race running together. So we got all up to Mount Nebo together and helped each other out with the blisters along the way. We had about 20k in. We started getting a bit of blisters, and we just made sure we stopped, treated it all before it got worse, and helped each other out through that. But then the first major checkpoint was up the top of Nebo, and this was sort of my first indicator about how I was feeling in the race.
Yep.
Got
Can
up
you
to the
see this
top
map
there.
that I've got on screen?
Oh, yep.
Yeah, you can.
Yep.
So I might try and save that image and drop it in. So Nebo was at the 43k mark, looking at this map?
43k mark. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so it started there, and sort of circled all the way um, out and then back.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
cool.
we start down. So we start at the gap there, then we do a bit of a run around the reservoir
hmm
before taking up to McAfee's,
hmm
and do a bit of a sideways dodge and keep going up to the top of Nebo, which that was an absolute bitch to climb.
That would
Uh,
have been something like this.
yeah,
Um,
you can
there's
see the
just
elevation.
there's just peaks. Yeah. Do you know what the total gain
Um,
was over the course?
it's over the entire course, 5,500 meters. I'm pretty sure it was. Um, somewhere between 4,500 and 5,500 meters of elevation gain, which
It's a bit of vert.
quite gnarly.
Absolutely.
Especially when the start's all uphill. It's just constantly uphill. A little bit of downhill, but just about all uphill.
hmm Andy's here. Andy Nobbs is just saying, he was like, have you sorted your shit out? Andrew Nance here as well from WA. Got Red Dust coming up
Oh,
in a couple of weeks. I don't think I'll be over there, Andy. I was hoping to meet you and shake your hand, but I don't think we'll be able to travel. Um, so after Nebo, it sort of looks like it plateaued out after that.
yeah, that was probably the roughest bit up there, up the top though. That when we got to the checkpoint, got a check over. Emma Teed was up there, and she helped us out as well with Gary. And yeah, Gary just got our pack sorted, and Emma thought it was a good idea to give us a foot massage, and that's when I realised how much pain my feet were in. Just the tendon on the inside of my inner sole inner arch was tight as all hell, and it was quite a lot of pain. And she was enjoying herself just massaging those pain points there, and
Yeah.
um, got ourselves sorted out that checkpoint, and we went out and the hills there in the next little bit up that top bit there were
So are we talking like 55 k's in, somewhere around there?
probably about 50 or 40 no, doing about 46k in. Um,
Okay.
the hills and descents that we had to do were just rough. They were, you think, after climbing probably 2,500, nearly 3,000 meters up to Nebo, um, probably 2,000 odd meters. You then got descents of about 100 meters across a 300-meter distance.
Yeah, wow.
Like
That's
they were,
that's a fucking ladder.
well, one of the points we had to use a rope to go down because it was too unsafe just to run down, and going uphill
Wow.
was just steep as all hell, like no joke. Nearly having to use hands and knees to climb up at some points.
I imagine that sort of this point here, perhaps that point as well looks pretty free fall, but that there looks pretty aggressive.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that was it there where it starts, because it was um, yeah, it was just ruthless, like 15, 16K of up down,
Yeah,
and trying to recover after that was just hell.
yeah. And you hit some problems pretty early. I'm sure I remember seeing a video that you posted. You went live. It might have been after Nebo, and you were already like in the pain cave then. And I went, "Oh fuck, you've got a long day."
Yeah, that was just after all that. Nick and I started coming down, and the bottom of my knees, just underneath the actual knees, more like probably towards not so much the joints, but just underneath the kneecaps. Um,
Yeah,
they were having trouble going downhill when I was doing descents. Uphill was
yeah,
no problem, but downhill was really struggling. So that was where Nick and I ended up parting ways. I said, "Yeah, I'm not going to be able to keep up with you, and I'm just going to hold you back. So go off and yeah, race your race, and I'm right where I want to be, right where the pain is, and this is where I'm really going to test myself. So to work like everything that I wanted to go, like all the lessons I've learned over the last few years, to put into action from that point on. So I was ready for it.
yeah.
So I just told him to get going.
Mate, Matty Probes, Sharon Martine's here. Um, Andy Nance just said that sucks, Matt. I'll see you soon. It's okay, mate. Something might change. I might make it to WA. Who knows? I might flee Queensland. Matty Probes is saying, was it harder than the 24-hour True Grit?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think I'll say yes because of the elevation game.
Mm,
The elevation was definitely the thing that made True Grit a lot harder than True Grit.
yeah,
True Grit was like fairly flat, then you had those hills in between, and then all the obstacles. So you lose momentum from the obstacles, but you've got um, if you're racing smart, you like I wasn't. But if you race smart, then that one is definitely a lot easier than doing this BTU.
mm. Yeah, I think a different kind of hard, and I think it's sort of what you tuned up for. I mean, you could have run, I guess. Jamie Hunter, I think, did 160 Ks um, at the um, True Grit, but um, but it is flat. So, but then you've got obstacles. So it's sort of where are your strengths? I would say for you, you're probably stronger on the obstacles, but not as much on the vert. So you're definitely
Yeah,
going into the darkness with BTU. I'd be the same, man. The fucking
100%.
vert would have chewed me
100%.
up and spat me out for sure. Andy Nobbs is saying that's called Township Track, and it's the worst trail ever. I did I did the 30K, and that started just here where my mouse is on the screen, the Red Bull climb. We sort of started just there and did that little
Oh
Red
yeah,
Bull climb bit, which I think was that bit
yeah.
of sort of straight up. And that was fun. Um, but that was only 30 Ks, so you had it. I
I-
passed you too with I think you had about 10 Ks to go.
yeah. Oh, that was good. Yeah, that was good seeing you guys, because like at that point, my head was like I was absolutely fried. Like
Yeah,
my head when I saw you guys, like I saw Dom and Samara rock up, and my head was just doing backflips kicks with excitement seeing them.
yeah.
But I was just like, oh fucked. That's all I had. That's all I could say really.
How long had you been on course? Well, how long did it take you to do the whole race?
The entire race took me 27 and a half hours to complete. So
Oh wow.
just cracked the cutoff time.
Yeah. And I guess safe to say that you did not go into this race particularly well prepared physically. You
Not,
in that in that I've certainly seen you lead into other events way better than this one. You did say it was a last
yeah,
minute sign up, but
yeah.
you
I sort of extended. It's a tricky one because I extended the training that I was doing for the True Grit.
Mhm.
Where True Grit had a single point of failure, which was still my own doing there, but I extended that training and learned, like, listened to some lessons Mick taught us, some things that he taught us what to do, and extended the training I was doing there anyway. So I was just continuing that, just because at the time I just didn't have a training routine lined out.
Mhm.
So I just kept doing that. But I was still thinking about it before doing True Grit, so um, it was still in the back of my mind to do it. But unfortunately, leading into the race as well, I had a chest infection for 3 weeks. So about 2.5 weeks where just coughing phlegm and I couldn't go out and run. So that alone was just like a, I just always have something go wrong beforehand, which pretty much probably a lot of people do as well. If something pops up. So that definitely took a toll as well with that last minute preparation.
Sure. Um, I mean, you were completely fucking delirious when I passed you. Well, Nelly, you were you were Nelly speaking in tongues. You just looked about as tired as I've ever seen a person, and that I think from memory it was about 7 k's out from the finish line or 8 k's out.
Yeah.
Dom and Samara had passed about 10 minutes before us, but
Yeah, I still remember you giving us a bit of, just giving us some shit, and that was like, yeah, okay, I got to get myself sorted.
I think
That's all I needed.
you had this sort of limpy walk, and I said, "Come on, mate, just jog it in." And you just gave me this look like I'm gonna fucking stab you. Um, I'm like, "Nah, you're good, man. You're good. Just walk it in." But you finish strong, man. We got a little bit of a jog out of you, I think, in that last 500 meters.
Yeah, yeah, that last little bit, I started on because I used to run that last bit across the river, um, year last year. I was actually running that a fair bit last year, so knew roughly how long it was going to take to get to the Kangaroo Point there. Um, yeah, but at that point, I was probably going about 3k an hour or so, like right before that. Then I sped up to about 4.5k an hour, and that was a shuffle run, and it was just, actually, yeah, I think it was 12. Oh, I can't remember what speed. I remember somebody got the speed out to check over what I was going, but yeah, I couldn't. Yeah, I just gone as best as I could. I don't know what I was doing. It's probably just walking speed.
You were doing well for 27 and a half hours into a race, man. You're still moving, which is pretty fucking incredible. Adrian Mannix just gave you an awesome high five, and he completed the Hurt 100 over in Hawaii, so he knows how deep
Oh,
you were in
true.
that pain cave. He knows firsthand. Have Adrian, have you done the BTU, the Brisbane Trail Ultra? I know he's done a heap of ultras, but mate, a solid achievement. So what did you learn?
Oh, so from the race itself was a confirmation of a lot of the lessons that I've learned over the years about mental training and um, what it takes to, I guess, build an unbreakable mindset. That's the sort of the aim was sort of a aim target that I was trying to work towards, um, and that really started after that really came to a test when Nick left and the sun was going down on the course. Was when I really discovered that sort of just the lessons, how powerful the lessons I had learned over the years came into effect. Because at that point the sun was going down, it was windy, no one around. I had no idea where on the mountain I was. Everything was pretty much outside. Um, just giving every single bit of warning indicator saying get yourself to safety should have been going off. But at that point, I was like, sweet, I'm right where I want to be. This is where it's going to suck the most. let's add a little bit more and welcome in the negativity as well.
Yeah.
And I actually went searching for, okay, what can I think about that is going to make me throw myself well off my game and bring in that whatever negative thoughts I could. And there were some there, but I was able to go through the same process that I've learned to control negative thinking and understand why those thoughts come up in the first place, and really was able to shut those down after I purposely put myself in thinking about those for over an hour.
You do need a
And
little bit to think about when you're out on course for for a fucking long time.
exactly. So,
So,
but yeah,
but
yeah,
obviously they worked. Obviously they there were some good coping strategies, and I think every athlete has coping strategies of some description, and some are much better than others, and generally the better athletes have better coping strategies. Um, so, do you want to run us through what they are and how they work? Like,
yeah. I might start with that bit of extra background there about also what led me into the race, because that helps to
sure,
understand how those lessons came about.
sure.
So
And
for quite a
just
number
be,
of years,
just
oh
before
yeah,
you do, sorry, man. Adrian Mannix did say he has done the BTU, so cool. So for
awesome.
quite a number of years, sorry.
Yeah, so for quite a number of years, I was battling a lot of mental health issues, and this stemmed from helping others with their own. Um, since I was 20, I had um, over, I think it's about 13 friends. I worked it out to have over 20 suicide attempts. And for a lot of those times there, I was either involved with at the time of those sort of events happening, as well as the discussions that happened afterwards or lead in discussions, whatever was going on, having those things happen. And when I was just before I turned 21, did have a mate take his own life, and that was just across the road from my gym as well. Um, and I worked it out to be that since every year, if I worked it out in a time span, it was one attempt every 4 months. Um, so during that time, I was really basically really scared about what like having a friend um, go through another problem and losing another friend. So from being 20 years old and having that happen, and all those different friends after that having their own mental health battles, it just kept my fears alive about that possibly happening to somebody else. Um, and I, at the time as well, was struggling with. I tried to have it. I was running a startup as well that I was trying to get off the ground, and that the with work helping with people and working on that, the two just in my head were just sort of intertwined together. And I felt like I failed a friend, and I was struggling to get this business off the ground. And then when going into having to go back to work full time, go into a job full time, I was also struggling there with the amount of stress that was present there. So I had all these things, and the work that I was doing, just continually stressful over time. And um, the stress and fear of losing another friend was just, they were all heavily intertwined together. Um, and that led me down to have several different coping mechanisms to deal with it. Firstly, I never talked about it. I never talked about any of those things happening. I just thought they were just normal things to happen. And then once the stress went away from work, then everything else would just disappear. And turns out that's not the case. Um, and when when your fears are uh, when your fears are just getting heavily triggered off all the time, like I said, like once every 3 4 months, you think that it's going to happen at any point. So
How,
everything.
it seems like a crazy number. Like, were you just in an unlucky situation, or were you connected with like a circle of people who were just had some destructive behavior, or like it just like I've had my own battles here and there, and a couple of mates who have certainly had the same, but this is a high frequency you're talking about. Did you ever work out like
Yeah, I that was one thing I had to do, and I'd learnt that one last year, and it's a that one came down to understanding how I interact with people. Um, and I've learned about personality types, and I'm an INFJ personality type, and empathy is like one of my more dominant functions.
Mhm.
Intuition and empathy are pretty dominant, which I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And so when I was chatting with people, I'd rather, and it makes a lot more sense when I started to think about it, but I rather get to know people on a more personal level than a superficial level
Sure.
first, and then you can add superficial in the different activities you're doing. But um, that led me to have those sit down discussions with people and just ask them what's actually going on. And I could just, over time, I could just see people having different problems, and I'll just pull them aside or just sit with them and let them talk. And that was the biggest thing I was doing, is just being willing to sit there and listen to people tell their story. So, yeah, just why I get why my mates have described is just that they just feel safe talking to me.
Sure.
So that's where a lot of people are able to come up to me a lot over the years.
So you end up being the person that people do come to when they are struggling, or they hit a spot where they're not doing so well and maybe don't have anyone else to turn to.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I did notice, that pattern start to happen.
Are you with the state of the world at the moment? I find that I'm struggling a little bit. I mean, you've got to be empathetic to be a coach. I think you have to be. You have to be able to connect and understand people to coach people. Um, I've been particularly struggling with the way the world is right at the moment, just because I'm seeing everyone be absolutely fucked to each other, and
Yeah.
it's really getting me down. Like it's even though it's not coming at me directly, and you know I've made a couple of posts to that effect. Um, but I'm particularly struggling just watching people act out on each other. Do you find you're struggling as well, being empathetic?
I guess I've learned. That's a. I used to, if I, this was probably 12 months ago, I would have it would have had a bigger effect on me than what it is now. Because I've learned different ways to approach the information that's being presented.
Sure.
Um, and learning how to break it down into more for what it is, and rather than what the story is getting told, or
Mhm.
how it makes you feel or anything like that. So um, definitely the lessons there to that I've learned is being to see, like, if I think one would have been what you're talking about was with one of those, was the protest that was on a few weeks ago. The way I see that is that the people have been frustrated for so long about the problems going on with lockdowns and the fears, uncertainty, doubts about all the different things going on, that people are um, basically in a state of stress, their fight or flight, um, fight or freeze, I should say, and they're just trying to survive. And they're at the point where they've got no understanding about how to control what's actually going on.
Sure.
That what it feels like is that their backs are in the corner. The only way they can feel is to get into these protests to actually make their thoughts heard, their voices heard, because that there's been no other way. Everything else that they tried um, hasn't worked, and they feel like they're in the last ditch effort.
Yeah,
Um,
that's exactly how I see it, man.
and it's definitely, it's hard to watch. And then when you're in this, the trick is when you're understanding that when you're in a state of stress, it, that's one of my biggest lessons over the last year, is about understanding what the state of stress and survival instincts are, how your survival instincts actually work, and how when those protests are going on, or when you're just stressed in general, how your amygdala works with your prefrontal cortex, and how the logical thinking gets switched off, because while you're in survival mode, you don't need to think properly to run away from a lion.
For sure.
You just
For
need to
sure.
you're just trying to get yourself out of danger as fast as possible. Um, and that's where these sort of I think these protests from not I can't say exactly what that feels like, but it's like that's like the last way to get out of that state of stress as fast as possible, and
Mm.
it's um, it's a tricky one to understand exactly what's going through their minds. But
Mm.
obviously, last year with everyone being in lockdown, um, it's easy to understand why they would get to that position.
Yeah.
But they've been in that position for so long that yeah, they just want to get out as fast as possible, and that's where they feel that they can say that or can get
Yeah.
that out.
And I mean, it's not necessarily just the protests that I'm talking about. It's just people are like there's almost this tribalism at the moment. People are just turning on each other, and it's hard to watch, especially when like I'm seeing guys who are clients, like they've both been my clients, and they're fucking turning on each other, and they met
Yeah, true.
because of me, and I'm seeing them argue on social media. But it's just I think what we need at the moment is more fucking empathy, not more division. Um,
Yeah,
and perhaps people to learn how to manage their stress a little bit better. One thing that I've been doing to great effect is if I get something super negative or somebody comments something that's particularly triggering, I'm like, I'm not going to respond to that. I'm going to sleep and I'm going to look at it tomorrow. And
yeah,
then the next day you look at it and you're like, no, I'm not even mad. It's fine. They're
yeah,
obviously in a bad spot if they said that, but it's just
yeah,
creating that separation between that amygdala and the frontal cortex, that chimp brain and the lizard
yeah,
brain, right?
yeah, and that's it. And that's that power there is when you can actually stop and think about that other person's situation, try and understand the narrative that their story about what's going on, and you can you can see patterns in the stories that if you look hard enough about what each
Sure.
person is going through, and just when you've been exposed to something for so long, this is like what depression, anxiety um, happens when you're exposed to stress for so long that the chemicals in your brain aren't, let's say, chemical imbalance. It's not chemical imbalance, so to speak, but it's not getting the chemical boosters that you need to stay stimulated.
Yeah.
Um, like the serotonin dopamine balance there is well out of whack. Yeah, when they're exposed to that for so long, there's um, yeah, unfortunately, you get yourself in that position, and it's a lot of the time it's at no fault to your own
Yeah.
about understanding.
I
Yeah,
one of my favorite quotes is well, when sort of understanding. Sometimes if somebody comes at me on social media for something, and I'm like, whoa, fuck. I always think the quote, hurt people hurt people. So
yeah,
I was like, if somebody's a real fucking dick, I'm like, why? What is going on with that person? Like, what situation are they in that they feel the need to troll me or send me a fucking angry message about something that I've said that's clearly like out of context and that wasn't what I was trying to say, but just trying to understand people like that. Um,
yeah. That's I think that's where the thing with social media, especially, is really hard when it's in text format, and
yeah,
they've got to having you got to add emoticons in and everything else to get that message across, and people can't you can't read through sarcasm or anything like that, or
yeah,
yeah, you can't understand the deep message because your vocals is what helps to express yourself, and that's what people the communication's missing
mhm,
through social media. So that's where a lot of those situations make it really, really hard to make those points and
yeah.
make it genuine, but but not be yeah, they get misinterpreted, unfortunately.
I think everyone's just on a real short fuse at the moment too. As you say, people are just backed into corners and they're all stressed and they're just hyper reactive to what they normally would be. So everyone's on the defense. Everything anyone says, they're like, fuck, don't attack me. It's like, I wasn't, I was just,
Yeah.
I wasn't fucking saying anything. Like, relax, just
That's
relax.
it.
Sarah just said, big ups to you, Maddie. Having had a mother, sorry, Sarah, I've just moved something over the screen. I couldn't read what I put up. Big ups to you, Matt. Having a mother who attempted suicide almost yearly since I can remember, and was finally successful 4 years ago. I completely understand your fears. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
sorry to hear.
it's definitely heavy, and when you were the person who I guess was the receiving end of all these people's trauma. It eventually sort of broke you down. Um,
Yeah,
tell
yeah,
us about
that
that.
yeah. So um, I got to, I think it was 25. So I'm 29 now, but 25 is when things really sat in heavy for me. I just got overwhelmed with all those different things going on that I couldn't. Like I always end up drinking myself to sleep. I had to drink myself to sleep every night for. I was like having 6 to 8 beers between 6 and 9 before I went to bed, and wasn't able to sleep because my head was just all over the place. So that's the only way. So I convinced myself that was the way to get to sleep,
Yeah.
um, and yeah, and I was just retreated from all my friends because I just couldn't handle the fact that people might come up to me and start talking about had more problems in, and like I'd
Mm.
bear that, feel like I was bearing that burden as well. Not that they were ever burdens, but I just didn't have the skills to process it, and so it eventuated that I end up getting up to 92 kilo and drinking every night, eating a box of shapes every night after dinner, and watching watching movies, and having also struggled with work as well. It was just a really rough position. So um, that was quite wasn't even um, it was quite a hard, it's a hard thing to think about now. Not so much that the emotions behind it, but remembering what actually happened because I was fairly drunk a lot of the time, so it's hard to keep memory from that. But
So
yeah,
we've
that
got a
was
bit of
unfortunately that was
context.
my coping mechanism.
Yeah. So we've got a bit of context. You were 25 then. So how old are you now?
29.
Cool.
So
So there's a pretty big difference from, you know, did you say you weighed 85 kilos?
sorry, 92 kilo.
92. You'd be a big boy at 92. Um,
Yeah, it was all on my gut as well. Like my legs were skinny still, and it was
yep.
just all on my gut.
There's an interesting journey behind 92 kilos and what I would say to be a drinking problem to finishing a 110k trail ultra within a couple of years. So how'd you dig yourself out of it?
Um, that was an interesting one. The very first thing I did was talk to my two best mates about what was going on. I gave them both a call and sat them both down at different times and just explained to them how I was feeling. Like I could only get a few words out as well. Like the anxiety just about sitting down and what they would say about it was just unreal. Like I was fidgety, dry mouth, everything going on. But I sat one of them down and just got a few words out, um, just to say how I was feeling, and um, it was that was a big relief to do, but it also came with um, the unknown coming after that was the hardest bit, not knowing once I'd said something what was going to come next, um, and that was where the floodgates started opening. And I remember going out one night on the out for drinks one of the nights, and getting home, and my mate just called us up after we were out and we're having a chat. And then the conversation, I don't know where it went, but I ended up just breaking down just about something complete. I had a completely different thought on my mind to what he was talking about. And I just ended up breaking down and just basically sobbed myself for about 40 odd minutes. Um, just everything was just coming out from that point. And I had him and another friend basically just help me through just those first few weeks about just rocking up, just having me find me out for little things. And I was hanging out with them all the time still, but they're only the only few people I was seeing a lot of the time. And um, yeah, they just invited me out for different things, kept me involved with things. And um, after that, I decided. I was actually going to go and do a Kentucky tour. So signed myself to do a Kentucky tour over in Europe, and um, um, yeah, ended up doing that a couple of months later on. So I had that thought about Einstein's definition of insanity in the back of my mind, doing the same thing over and over again. So it was just doing something different, and that was quite literally where it started. It was just that message there in the back of my mind, and that was one thing I knew I needed, just a bit of a breakaway, a holiday away. So yeah, that ended up being the first thing. I think of a few things that I did, as well as jump up to Toastmasters.
Yeah, yeah. I know you're doing
So
Toastmasters because you're the most prepared guest I've ever spoken to on my podcast. You sent me some learning materials through, and we have some photos to bring up. So you just let me know whenever you want to bring anything up. But
oh,
so
definitely.
Toastmasters was a good thing for you.
Yeah, that was definitely an absolute hell for me because at that point I went from being a bit of a life of the party, not so much the center of attention, but just always wanted to spark it up, just have fun and enjoy myself, and always wanted to do that. Um, but with all those different events going on, that's when alcohol and those conversations always came up while drinking, and other things, all drama stuff, also happened while drinking. So it all started to get all mixed in together. Um, and all the confidence, like I lost a lot of confidence over all those years. I just retreated, anxiety, just depression, keep me indoors. So that was my way of having to learn how to communicate with people, like having to speak again, just have conversations and just chat through what's going on, and um, yeah, having to start basically from scratch when it comes to communication.
You still do it
And
to this day?
that, yeah, still do it to this day. So in all honesty, it took up until just after doing the True Grit Enduro this year that I actually got comfortable with being at Toastmasters. I never, all those years, I just had there was always that little something there that I felt a bit uncomfortable with. And then it's only just this year that I've actually felt comfortable with it, even though I've done a lot in there and had a lot of good speeches. I feel that really helped me out. That I felt only just feeling comfortable about it just recently, and that's stems in with all those lessons and um, how everything all ties in together about how all my thoughts were all interlinked together. With that disappearing, I only felt comfortable after that.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, it's been good.
I had somebody invite me to Toastmasters a couple of weeks ago. I've had a couple of people invite me to Toastmasters. I've never taken the plunge. Various chapters here and there, but maybe I'll come and join yours one day.
I'll definitely enjoy it tomorrow night. Actually, we've got our contest night on, so come in and just listen
Okay.
in and just see what it's like.
I don't know if Sean Lusham's still here. I know he was here at the start. I think I've got a running consult with Sean tomorrow night, but let me know when the future dates are. But
Yep.
nope, had a complete
Yeah.
mental blank. I had something there, but it's gone.
Oh, definitely. But yeah, that was definitely one of those turning points as well. Um, and with doing that, that was one of those few things there that I did during that time as well. Was just I just had to think back about some of the little achievements that I had. I used to be a tennis coach, um, and I thought back about um, just who I coached over those years and what I enjoyed about it. And I actually got to remember having this one girl. I think she was only 7 at the time, 7 or 8, and she her school bag was just as about as big as her, um, but she was just a different. She was a different student than all the others that I had there. A lot of the other kids were just more muck around, have fun, and um, yeah, just be kids. Where she was one of the exceptions to that, where there were kids that were upset because they couldn't put enough tennis balls on their racket. So she'd be that person to go off, give them her tennis balls, and only rock up with a few on it, like less than what I asked for on her racket. And I could see that it happened. So yeah, so I could see that happen. So I just let her off the hook with that one. But my favorite bit was when she um, she liked challenging herself. I remember just doing some forehand backhand drills where I just got to run side to side, just put some cones out. And she used to grab those cones and just she says, I want to make it harder this week. I want to make it harder this week. And just kept grabbing those cones and putting them out wider, and she's trying to see how she can make things harder for herself. And sitting there thinking about that, that's honestly what started me wanting to do these different hard things. Was just thinking back that a little 7-year-old, 8-year-old was just trying to make her learning experience that little bit harder so she'd get better. I just did that myself, just finding what it was harder just to do, and just kept doing, adding little things, just pushing those goalposts out, which is that's um, comfort zone there. So really, if you ask me what started me doing all these stupid, hard, challenging things, it was a 7-year-old that doesn't even realize that she got me doing that.
She's gonna go far. You know what she's doing now? How long ago was that?
Oh, that would have been probably 8 years ago. I think maybe
Wow, wow.
8 years ago, I'd say it was.
Yeah. She'll go far enough,
So
for sure.
yeah, yeah. Only saw her only the first time, and I didn't recognize her the first time. Since then, really, only a few weeks ago. So I was like, just took a double step, and I was like, I've got to go up and got to go up and let her know what she's done. So set another lunatic in the world.
Mate, we've got a couple of comments that I'll just look at before we move on. So, um, Funzi, really appreciate you coming on and opening up about your journey through mental health, what you went through. It takes a lot of courage to speak up because it's something we can hide from. We shouldn't be ashamed to ask for help or know wrong. Feeling the way you feel. You're such a great legend. Have a heart of gold too.
No.
A lot of love from Funzi there. And Dom's just said, Matty, what would you say is your greatest achievement or what you're most proud of to date, say both personally and fitness wise?
Oh, good one, good one. Definitely that BTU was the pinnacle. It's probably going to be the pinnacle um, of both physical and mental achievement in a way that's easy for people to understand.
Sure.
The way I'll put it is, um, Hobie Call,
Hmm.
US legend in obstacle course racing. He's got a
Original
saying
legend, yeah.
that the original legend. He's got a saying: um, the race is the celebration, not the final test. And for me, the greatest achievements are all those tests that I've had over the years where I said no to the bad foods instead of the healthy foods. Taking on those little things there. The nights where I end up not going out
Mhm.
late and going home that little bit earlier, or just not going out for um, more of a mental health reason, just keep the sanity there a little bit longer.
Mhm.
Those for me, those little things there were I'd say probably the biggest achievements, um, because the defaults that I used to have were leading me down those bad roads and keeping me there. So um, I'd say they're the um, say that way. When I've rocked up to these races, I can look back and say that I've enjoyed the journey that I've taken, and saying yes or no to those things over the years. So um, yeah, that for me, um, yeah, it's probably those achievements. I'd say it's probably a bit of a different answer than people might give, but that for me was yeah, that's a bit of a they were the hard things to do.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, I think that's a good lesson. It's something that I try to get clients to understand is try and get away from that extrinsic. It's not about the race. It's not it's not about the finish medals and the shirts. It's about the journey and the self improvement, the lessons. Um,
Yeah.
but it's a hard thing to get somebody to flick that switch and see the world differently. Sharon saying, "Hi, Maddie. Thank you for your candidness. What's the next big challenge on the cards for you?"
Oh, okay. Good question. Good question. I'm with this. This was that sort of, this itself was going to be a test. This was going to be the celebration and a test at the same time, to put everything that I've learned over these years into this, where I'll talk about shortly about how this thinking comes about. But for the next big challenge, I don't have so much of a big challenge to go to 160, 100, 200K eventually. The way I see it is the result that I'm looking for in the future, and working out what I'm going to try and do to achieve it. Which at some point I would like to be able to get to the death race over in the US on Joe DeSena's farm,
You and me
do
both.
something absolutely stupid like that. So it's working out what the different lessons I'm going to have to work towards to work out what's going to be required to take on something like that.
Mhm.
So I think it's going to be the Trigger Enduro will be the next biggest one, and I don't really look. I probably won't do another ultra like this for quite some time. Just while I've got um, speed training, like what I really enjoy is the speed races and the shorter distance races. So I'm going to try and work on those, and try and like build myself up through the elite in the short distance, and then start to take on those longer distance races in years' time, just because of it takes, how much time it actually takes just to prepare for something like that. Where where work's going at the moment, it sort of interferes with that a little bit. So,
Yep.
which I'm fully happy with. Like yeah, it's going to be good to take away from that longer intensity stuff to do the shorter distance stuff.
Yeah, it is a massive commitment. I mean, I was going to hit the Cairns Ironman this year.
Yeah,
Um, and I was sort of on track for it, but then I just got busy with work, and I just didn't have the time to go and do 8 hours on the bike and go for multi-kilometer swims. Like I just didn't have the time, and I'm like, fuck, I'm not going to be able to. I'm not going to be happy with my performance. But it is such a commitment to do these big events, like because if you're going half cooked, you're very much risking an injury. And I know how
that's
long it
it.
took you to come good. Like it took you, I think, a few weeks to get your head straight
Yeah,
after it. They knock you
yeah.
around.
I'm still recovering. I only just recovered a few weeks back, so it took 4 weeks worth of recovery to be able to get my breath back while running. I couldn't run properly without being out of breath. It's
Yeah,
it was heavy.
yeah. Andy's saying the Blackall 100. He's got you. He's got you
Yeah,
sorted for Blackall,
I think I'll do the 50 for that one. But
mate.
I'll help him and Gary out with 100.
Do
Gary
some
needs all the
hitting for
help he can
Gary.
because he can't do 110 yet.
How good's Gary? He's a fucking legend.
Oh, Andy, just those guys, just the amount of effort those two put into the things, and how Gary helped us with the all the prep work was, yeah, just absolutely phenomenal.
Um, you can see Gary there with his nighttime profile photo of him completing. Which race was that? Was
Yeah.
that that was Blackall actually, I think, from memory. Let's see if we can just zoom into his profile picture there. Nah, I can't bring it on. Oh, now I've wrecked everything. Stand by. Shots fired. UTA. That was it. That was
That's
it.
it.
Ultra Trail Australia. Yeah, it's saying it takes so much time to train for ultra events. 15 hours of training this week. UTA was a tough day in the office too.
Yeah.
That was brutal, that race.
Oh, it's always good
So
listening
hats
to
off.
his videos. Like the photos of him afterwards, his fucked face is just on point.
For sure, for sure. So, mate, did you want to go into some of these systems, some of these ways that these coping mechanisms that you've sort of developed over the years?
Yeah, really, with a lot of it, it stems the lessons that I learned. I can summarize down to just how powerful your survival instincts are,
Hmm.
and that's what I realized that with everything I was doing, I couldn't work out exactly what the hell was going on in my head, and I was sent a psychologist to help break everything down,
Hmm.
and I was just always off researching and just trying to find out what the hell was going on because I just didn't want to feel the way I was, and I realized how dominant the survival instincts are to everything in your body, just about everything. How your survival instincts, them as well as your central nervous system work together, um, and everything I realized stemmed from both of those two. I've still got a bit to learn with the central nervous system, but the survival instincts were really the biggest powerful thing. Because when you're in a state of survival, like I said, um, your logical thinking gets turned off, and you're just trying to get yourself out of danger as fast as possible. And what I realized was with going through all these different thoughts, these different things going around in my head, um, I realized that when it comes to anxiety, depression, um, anxiety especially, all your body is trying to do is get yourself out of danger as fast as possible. And the way it's trying to give you that is through the warning signs of how you're feeling. And I see it as a story. So with everything going on, the way your thoughts are coming up about certain interactions that you're having with people, different triggers that are going off, your body's just giving you different, trying to create a story about the issues at present. And to get out of that, you're trying to basically close off that story as fast as possible, create that conclusion to what's going on. And this is the hardest bit where there's no direct answer to what's going on, but you're trying to create processes that sit outside of that way of thinking to help create the answers in those moments.
Hmm.
Um, it's um, if I could get you to bring up image one, actually,
I think it loaded them in backwards, but
I
is that
did.
one there?
No, the other one, the yeah, that one.
Cool.
So one thing, one bloke, Joe Dispenza, talked about, I think I had a chat with you about that one time, is that
Hmm.
when you have an emotional reaction to something, and if you have that reaction last for days, it's called a mood.
Hmm.
And if it lasts for from days to weeks to months, it's called temperament.
Hmm.
And when it lasts from months to years, it's called a personality trait.
Hmm.
And when that reaction happens, those thoughts come about the experience, and you don't close them off. That particular story is still active in the back of your mind. Everything else in life is still happening around, but that particular story is still active and it hasn't been closed off. And whenever you listen to a story and it cuts off halfway through, and you're like, what's the end to it? You really want to hear it. That's what your brain's doing at that particular time. Um, when and that in itself, certain traumatic events, especially, the mind stays at that particular point in time, and with everything else going on around, it feels like you start to become your survival instincts are kicking off to react to that particular incident just to close it off, and it's in that stress because it doesn't know how to do it. Um, so that these dots here on the what I've in this image I sent through are basically like that. All these different thoughts are going off. They just lead off to different experiences, and that one in red there is that particular point in time of it could be anything. I don't know. It could just be an experience at work, for example. um,
Hmm.
and it just stays with that particular thought.
Hmm.
When one study that was done by, I can't remember, it was a study at a university. Another bloke, Trevor Moawad, had a really, really good point.
Yep.
Is when you say something out loud, or when you have a thought, it's got a one times multiple. But when you say something out loud, it's got a 10 times fold to that. But if you say
Yep.
something negative out loud, it's got a 4 to 7 times multiple on top of that. So um, if you think about those negative experiences that you have in that red dot, your mind is multiplying that thought out to. I see that you can, even though you say it out, even if you just say it out loud, if you just keep that thought in your mind active, it's still got that same sort of multiple effect on it, where
100%.
your mind with your survival instincts are trying to give you the warning signs of that this is a bad experience, and it's louder than everything else to try and keep you safe. It's giving you those lessons, trying to give you those lessons there,
Hmm.
about what's going on. So it keeps that thought active. Um, and that's where a lot of trouble starts to come in when you keep those previous thoughts active, um, and aren't able to find the conclusion to them.
Yep. I think
And
something that I think this is definitely we're wired to identify bad experiences more and highlight
yeah,
them more because evolutionarily that's how we don't die.
yeah,
Also, there's this social side of it as well. Like thousands of years ago, if you pissed off everyone and you got ostracized from the tribe, you weren't going to survive very long. Um, you know, a tiger would eat you. So
yeah,
that's why we have these like negative experiences, and you'll just like something will pop into your head from when you were 10 years old, and you're at school and you got embarrassed in front of the class, and it'll make you embarrassed now, and you're like, why the fuck do I even care about that?
exactly.
We're definitely programmed to highlight the bad stuff, and I think something that people would be able to um, really this would resonate really with a lot of people right now is if you've shared anything like an opinion on social media for the last couple of months. You
Yep,
can have 95% of people agreeing with you and one or two nasty fucking people on the other side, and that's all you think about. You just
yep,
think about that negative. Like we are so programmed to for that. Like, and they say in business, one negative review overshadows 10 positive reviews. It's just the way it
100%.
works. So yeah.
100%. And it's how the media TV works. Their
Oh yeah.
negativity spells. That's how they stay in business. That's why people keep going back,
Yeah.
listening to what's on TV, and because you're programmed to listen to negativity. When something positive comes on TV, you just literally switch it off. Um,
Yeah.
and I think the biggest trouble with a lot of these multiple effects, these loudness to a lot of things, is the fact of, because we're such a high paced life nowadays. Like, technology allows you to have instant gratification. The dopamine reward that you get out of it is just absolutely unreal.
100%.
That we don't have the time to actually stop and process a lot of the information that's coming at us. Like when you said before that when you have a message come through and you stop, go look at it the next morning and process it in a much clearer frame of mind, it's not so bad. But people don't actually take the time to stop and process things first. And it's not at fault of anybody. It's just that same thing. When you have habits come from repeating something over and over again. Your brain, the neural pathways in your mind hardwire that information in, and that's where you can access negative thought loops really easily, because the hardwiring is there. It's designed to keep you safe, keep you going. Remember, you had this thought previously. Yeah, this happened.
Mm.
Um, don't let it happen again. That's exactly what your mind is doing there, just to not let you get back in that same situation, and not having the time to process and go, okay, it's not actually as bad as what it was. It was pretty embarrassing, but next time you can process it differently.
Yeah.
Those are the skills I think that a lot of people are missing.
I think
At the
definitely. I would say that is mindfulness, if I had to put a word to it. It's the type of thing that you're going to start to look at in yoga and stuff like that. So you become very aware, very mindful of what you are feeling, and you can sort of distance yourself from that emotion. So you like and meditation does a little bit of that, where you just start to become aware of your thoughts, and you don't necessarily critique them one way or the other. You just get aware of them. And you're like, oh,
Yeah,
there's a negative thought. Oh, that's interesting. Moving right
yeah,
along. And
that's
I
it.
think until you do that deeper digging stuff where you really try to understand yourself, I think it's definitely the default is that people don't have mindfulness. I think you have to do a little bit of self-discovery to get to it. Um,
100%.
so yeah, you're right. People don't create that distance between um, uh, not impulse. It's not the word I'm looking for. People don't create the distance between the thing that's occurred and your reaction to it.
Yeah,
So the thing
yeah,
that's
it's
occurred,
just
I
that
had a
time.
word, but it's disappeared. Yeah, and I think that's a really, really important thing, especially on social media, just to be able to have something happen and not immediately go, no, fuck you, and fire straight back. Like, be able to distance yourself and analyze and go, well, hang on, why is this happening? Why am I feeling so
Yeah,
triggered by this? Why is
yeah,
this triggering me? Um,
and that's quite literally it. That in itself becomes a comfort zone for people is when they get triggered that they can just go, um, like that the only way of getting like their own thoughts out is just by messaging, and that becomes people's comfort zone to be able to do things behind the keyboard in a because then you get a dopamine hit from that interaction that you get from people, and you're creating a reward system based on that what's going on. It's just it all becomes so muddled together, really complicated. Where it's yeah, it's scary. I think in many ways, just how simple those sorts of um, not how simple the problem is, but how complicated it is to solve.
yeah,
Um, Probably thinking of yeah, um, yeah, yeah. It's a interesting one to dive into.
for sure. I think it's evidently a large problem. The fact that we are now so connected and networked, and you are now connected to the most amazing people that you can think of in pretty much every discipline, and you're also connected to the 1% of the nastiest fucking trolls. Like
Yeah,
it's just social media.
yeah, that's it.
We're
And
yeah,
yeah, because so easy to access as well. The screen time that you get from the screen time that everything there, it all plays a part. It might seem harmless jumping on social media a lot, but
mm,
it's the fact that when what I the next bit about the next thing that I'd bring up about the problem with social media is because it's so live and so it's changing all the time
yep,
that the fact that people nowadays aren't bored is a big problem.
yep,
Learning how to be bored is actually, I'm going to say, from all the lessons I've learned over the years, that learning to be bored is probably going to be the biggest cure for a lot of these issues because it's so high paced, not having the time, like not adding. When you got 168 hours in a week, 86,400 seconds in a day, how many of those seconds actually spent on your screen, in front of screens, doing high paced interactions with people, where you actually have the time to stop, process your thoughts, and let them settle down.
yeah,
Um, that's where a lot. That's where the fundamental issues start to come into a lot of the problems, both in depression, anxiety, the society issues that we're facing, the rise in depression, mental health issues. Um, there's so much messaging coming through with people, subliminal messages all over the place there that you never take the time to stop and think. You just become a robot. And the thing I like about that picture I got you to pop up is that one thing to realize about it, it is a linear. image. So it's just a point in time here, and all the dots just are marked out left to right in a linear sort of fashion. All your events, the latest events that are occurring, are on the right hand side, and all the rest are on the left hand side. Um, and that's a really important thing to realize, is the way people are thinking is, I've realized a lot of the time, is very linear about just wake up, go to the job the next day, get paid, do what you need to do, then next event come up, next thing coming up. And when you're trying to survive, like the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, things that you think about at the particular around that, like in that time of survive, or when those negative experiences occur, is the thing that helped you survive at that particular point in time may not be able to help you survive in the future.
Sure.
So you're as you go through the weeks and months, that with the way you think, if you're trying to apply old thinking to all the different things going on in the future, the ability to be able to process information also becomes a lot harder as well, because the interactions that you're having, the the way you handled the way they handle previous experiences um, may not always be the same in future. The trigger points may feel the same, but it's one of those ones as well that um, it's try not to apply old thinking to new situations. Use experience for sure, um, uh, but try and apply a different way of thinking to the different problems that you face in the future, those negative experiences. Um, Otherwise, you're actually going to stay with that definition of insanity there, doing the same thing over and over again.
Mm.
Um,
I think a lot of people do get themselves trapped like that. You know, you think of people over the years who just date the same people and have the same problems, and then they will split from somebody, and then the next partner is the same, and it's like, you
yeah,
just fucking, what are you doing? Like, are
that's it.
you, is it the fact that you just, because you're the one doing it and living it out, that you don't see your own bullshit? And I think that is it. Like, you don't have that high level awareness of what's actually happening. So you don't realize that you're repeating the same mistakes over and over, even if your best friends are completely aware of it. I
Yeah,
think that's one of the reasons why coaching is super important. And I know you've had multiple coaches over the years for various things, but just having that eagle eye top down view is having somebody who can pull you out of your own bullshit. And the
yeah,
same can be said for when you don't talk to anyone about your issues. You just bounce shit around in your own head, and it just gets more and more insidious. And then
yeah,
often the act of speaking to somebody about it, you straighten it just by talking to somebody about it. You work out your own solutions. But until you
yeah,
could vocalize it and talk to somebody, like, you don't even need them to give you an answer. You just need to bounce it off somebody to realize how fucking nuts you are. Um,
exactly.
so
Which is that where I refer to that as that conclusion there, to the thoughts going on. When you can actually vocalize it or write it down in some way, it actually then starts to make sense. You can see the problems in front of you, or at least go back and reread what you've done, or think about what you've
mm,
said, and you go, oh, actually, I get it now. It's
yeah,
yeah,
it
very
just
much
comes
so.
back to that mindfulness thing, and just knowing yourself and knowing who you are and what you are and why you are the way you are, and coming to peace with it, or going, well, I don't like this thing about myself, so I'm going to actively try and change it. Um, but yeah, it's a big thing. I will 100% agree that social media is a massive fucking problem. In that, like, I'm running a reset challenge at the moment, and we've got tech challenges where one of them is just hide your fucking phone for an hour a day. Just fuck it off somewhere, put it in a drawer, just leave it alone. Prune your social media was another one. So remove a couple of bad sources and add a couple of positive sources. Another one was Can't even
Oh.
remember. But they're bad, man. I literally bought this thing that I got off Amazon, which is like a lock crate, right? That I literally like when I when I need to work, I literally press this and it'll count down. I throw my phone in it and it'll lock. And now I can't get it out for whatever timer I set. My productivity, my productivity has gone through the fucking roof, man,
Yep.
because of how much I'd be going to do something. I'm trying to bash something out. I'm trying to do some graphic design or something, and then I'm like, I'll just need to send a photo from my phone, and then all of a sudden I'm in the social media vortex, and 45 minutes later I'm just scrolling Instagram for no fucking reason.
Yep.
Um, so these things all
It's
have to be
crazy.
managed. We've got a bit of
Oh,
we've got a bit of love coming in the chat line. Sharon's saying really enjoying this chat, so relevant and so true. Thinking may only be 6 months old these days. Andrew's saying thanks, Matt. Awesome talk. Got to go. We'll catch the rest of the conversation on recording. And Adrian Mannix saying best live chat I've listened to for a long time. Lots to take away always. Many thanks. Thanks for tuning in always. I would say, Adrian Mannix, you are probably my biggest fan for my live chats. I think you've probably been on almost every single one of them. Matty Day, looks like your internet may have dropped out for a second there. Let's just see if I can get him back, guys. Whoop. I think he's back. Whoop. Give me 1 sec, guys. I think I'm still live. Can I just get a thumbs up or somebody just tell me if I am still streaming? Um, okay. I think it was your end, buddy.
oh, was
That's
it?
okay.
Sorry.
We were just going through the messages rolling in. A bit of love coming in for our chat. Fonzie's just saying, what are you currently reading, Matthew?
Oh,
Could be you
I,
or me.
yeah, I've just finished up reading a book about the placebo effect.
Oh yeah, super
So
fucking interesting.
it's one of those interesting fields because of with when I was learning about how like I've been really interested about how the mind works.
Mm.
After trying to work through all these things and trying to understand why things happen the way they do and like how to understand how to help people better when those interactions do come up. Understand the placebo effect is a really, really interesting phenomenon because you can just simply for the fact of how you can change your thinking can change how your body operates.
You
Um,
literally change your
when-
physiology, man. I was just looking for my phone. It's locked in the fucking box. What's the what's the book called? The Placebo Effect?
uh, this one was called Cure.
Cure.
Um, and the other one I read was You Are the Placebo by Joe Dispenza.
Yeah, I know that one. Um,
So it's
did they talk about the study that was done? Well, there's been heaps of them, but the one where they gave the runners the green liquid.
no, I didn't hear that one.
So they did a study. I'm going to paraphrase the fuck out of it because I can't remember it exactly, but they basically had all these like runners, and they told them that it was like a sports performance drink, but it was just like water with food coloring, and it
Yeah.
massively boosted their performance, like
Yep.
significant, statistically significant. Um, the placebo effect is fucking crazy how good it works, and I see it all the time with people who take supplements, and they're like, "Oh my God, you got to try this shit," and I'm like, I don't, but if it's working for you, keep taking it.
That's it. It's one of those crazy things. It's because it still stems down to that survival instinct a little bit, where you're when you trigger the stress off that. I see it in the way of how you can not allow so much positive thoughts, but allow the free flow of thoughts and not have the negative there. And the stress, the removal of stress is pretty much a key performance boost because as you stress, your concentrations go into different parts of your body, all those different things going on there, and your immune system gets shut down, your guts get shut down, all these different things get shut down. And when you give people like a placebo there, those sort of like the stress in itself starts to go away because, oh yeah, this is going to solve a lot of those problems. So it starts to take its attention away from issues at hand and puts them into other things, thinking, okay, this is actually going to work, and it allows for the body to do what it does naturally.
Yeah. I would say it shifts people from problem focus to solution focus.
Yeah,
So sort of shifts you away from going, what's my issue, instead of, oh well, I'm now working on a solution, and then all the other bricks will fall in place that they need
yeah,
to. Because that's
yeah.
often the
That's
biggest thing. And you see it like when you get people who are procrastinating and they're like in a situation and they can't find a resolution. And it's like,
yeah,
just do something. They're like, oh, but what should I do? I'm like, fucking anything. Just fucking do anything.
yeah,
I get it like when I talk to people that have like helped with business coaching. They're like, I've got this idea and I've got this idea and I've got this idea. And I'm like, they're all great. Just fucking do one. And they're like, oh, but which one? I don't care. Just fucking do one. Just do one of them.
yeah.
Just fucking do
That's
something.
it.
Like, because as soon as you
That's it.
start that momentum, it's going to turn into more momentum. Um,
Yep,
it's so powerful.
that's it. Well, I'll quickly with yeah, because it's yeah. Actually, I like the thing about momentum there. So, and what I think is really powerful with when it comes to doing something, I look at the different things of doing something different as all of them as skill building.
Hmm.
Um, could I get you to bring up that image? That's that first image that I brought mentioned before. Um,
That one?
no, the other one, the dots, the
That one.
that one there.
Okay.
That
Just let
one
me bring it
is
up. I'll bring
really
it up on full screen. Give me one sec.
that's easy.
That's probably the easiest way to do it. Haha.
That's it, perfect. So that the one on the left, the way this is how my mind has changed quite considerably. So the way like what I mentioned before is about those dots being linear. That's how I was just
Hmm.
feeling like every day was just something new and something else was popping up. But this is how my mind starts to do things differently nowadays, where I'm learning a lot more about all different things about particularly the mind. And they're like the dots on the left. They were just all different dots
Hmm.
about bits of understanding that I picked up over the years.
Hmm.
And skills stack.
Yeah,
You
for
learn
sure.
skills over somewhere else, just all these different skills stack, and they
Hmm.
start to just pile on top of each other. You get more deeper into certain things, and you start to turn into what you've got on the left or the right hand side, which all is that experience that you start to link all these different experiences all together. And that was one of my biggest realizations last year when I was talking to the psychologist, especially, was understanding how my thinking worked and how I was starting to see things start slightly different. And it's those dots on the right hand side there that are it basically becomes a filter to all the different issues that you're experiencing. So the stress that occurs can be filtered through those different experiences when you get like simple fundamental understanding about what's actually going on, why the brain works the way it does, how to see the perspectives of different perspectives about a particular point of view of how to do something, and then what you can do to change. Um, what you can do to address that particular situation. And that's all that experience is there is all those different dots connecting up, and um, it starts to become a really liberating feeling when you finally get all those different things start to connect up, and then you go, oh, I see what somebody else was talking about a couple of months ago, or they just told us just now. That makes something like it's one of those ones where I love it when somebody says something really simple, but it joins like six or seven of those dots up all at once.
Hmm. It's the difference between knowledge and wisdom. So you occasionally you meet a really young kid who's really bright, but they have no idea what the fuck's going on because they just haven't had the experience to fuck up and learn the lessons. You know what I mean? So you
Yeah.
can be bright without having experience for sure. And you can probably have the other way around as well. You can definitely have the other way around. Um, and you're sort of looking
Definitely.
at almost a synapsed brain on the right side here in the experience. Um, have you read Sleep, Why We Need It by
Oh, I
Matthew
think I've
Walker?
listened.
I think we were
I,
talking about some Matthew Walker podcast, maybe.
yeah, I think I've listened to his podcast. It's
Has he started his podcast yet? I know he was about to. He's been talking about it for a while.
yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
he's
I
been on
think
he's been
he.
on Joe
Oh,
Rogan. He's been on a couple of guys, Andrew Huberman. I've seen him do a couple of talks,
yeah,
but his book is excellent.
yeah. I think that was where it was with Huberman on
He
Huberman
talks
Labs.
about that guy's amazing.
It's
He talks about like the different types of sleep, so NREM and REM sleep. And NREM is where you're an IT guy, so you'll get this. So you have like your ROM and your RAM, right? So during the day you run on like your RAM, your random access memory, and then when you go to sleep and you get into that deep sleep, you like file it into ROM storage that you archive it and you store it for later. But then when you go into REM sleep, which is the rapid eye movement, that's when you're creating all those synapses between this new information. And you're basically taking this new information that you've got and you're networking it to all the different previous bits of information that you had. And this is why
yeah,
creative people and entrepreneurs, the ones who go out and get a lot of experiences are the ones who have the richest ideas. Because like artists will say they want to, taste as much of the world as they can, because that's when you're
yeah.
connecting all these different experiences together and creating something like this fusion of new ideas. It's cool.
That's it. It's
It's pretty
awesome.
much what you've drawn.
Yeah, yeah. That's it. And that third image, that other one that I sent you, once you start to get all those things together,
Hold on, I'll bring it up.
um,
I'll definitely fuck it up. It's like putting a USB in. I just keep opening the wrong ones. Um,
that one,
oh,
that's sort of, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So basically, once it's, this is how I see that the feeling of when that liberating feeling when everything, there's all those different experiences that you've got going on around. Those are, if you ignore the messages about like your life path and other parts, I see those as more the thoughts that you could have had that you didn't allow yourself to have because while you're stressed, you're trying to get yourself out of that stressful situation as fast as possible. So you become so focused on that one particular train of thought that all the other ones they're still going on around, but you don't, they're not nearly as active. And it's
Yeah.
when all those different skills start to stack up together, you get to that particular point where it's got your life today, where it's on the right hand side where it's all green, and that's all those different dots um, coming into full effect,
Hmm.
and that's how your mind starts to just open up to everything else and how to process every sort of interaction and um,
Yep.
every sort of interaction that much more efficiency. You can start to process things a lot quicker. So,
Yep.
like with that like I said about that those emotional experiences where it takes days to weeks to months, the mood, temperament, personality trait, you can start to process those things with those different skills really quickly. Um, every single opportunity starts to open up a lot quicker, or open up us. You notice that those opportunities are there because you're not so focused on one issue in front of you. You can process it really quickly, and then you can see the other opportunities. That's
Yeah.
the
Well, you have more options, right? And I know that you're entrepreneurial and run your own business, and they say first you learn, then you earn. The more you
yeah,
learn, the more options you have, and then instead of seeing barriers, you see opportunities. You go, well, I could do
yeah,
this, I could tackle it this way, I could tackle it this way, and the more tools you have in your toolbox, the more situations you can solve. So
100%.
yeah, it's cool, man. I'm liking how you're saying things.
But yeah, so I look at all those things, all those sorts of things there. Like everything I said, it stems from having a growth mindset.
Hmm.
Um, where I say my growth mindset, there's many different ways. The key bit is the starting point is the yet. But I say that when I go through all those different experiences, that I go, I can't, so I can't yet, so I can, and that's how I approach a lot of those different things. There is take myself saying I can't, so I can't yet, so I can to work out okay, what do I need to do to get through that particular challenge that I'm facing, that particular obstacle there? And that's really um, really a simple way of, it's a simple way of thinking, but it really helps to um, keep you working towards something. And with um, one of those things about with Andrew Huberman, that podcast, he was talking about um, how when you're starting to work towards things, the dopamine hit that you actually get from trying to work towards things there, um, it's learning to take yourself out of the reward system over here, so the phone reward system or something else, and trying to apply that over somewhere else and over something that's hard to do, but you keep working towards it. And those are the things that help to reduce that, or to create that dopamine detox from a non-productive way and put that into a productive way. And that growth mindset there really makes a massive difference to allow that.
Yep. Would you say that you are good at endurance sports because you've done all this development, or would you say you've done all of this development because you do endurance sports?
Uh, they come in parallel, I
Yep.
think. I've worked at when I was with the psychologist, he was talking. He a lot of time because he every single at the start of every session would just talk about like what I was doing with my OCR training, when the next event's coming up, what it's been like, and I was going fairly frequently last year because I was so burnt and staying at home in isolation. Like I relived every single experience that I had. I relived, and I was training my garage, just sitting there for like half an hour to an hour afterwards. Um, just trying to find out how to do something, do that
Mm.
next thing. And the way he would explain a lot of it was always coming back to like a sports terminology there, that um, you can apply something physical, like a physical, like intensity, for example. You can apply something intensity of physical intensity to um, like something psychological as well. Like when you go for those slow runs, those slow longer runs, for example,
Mm.
just focusing on heart rate, not spiking up too much. You're not getting to the point of putting yourself in a state of stress. And if you go do those high intensity trainings, you actually put yourself, when you're starting to heavy breathe, you're hyperventilating, so actually creating that bit of stress there. And the same thing is when it comes to the mental side of things, is um, learning how to um, well, when it comes to endurance, learning how to keep yourself in that lower state of intensity and not allowing yourself to build up too high. So there's
Do you mean from like a deregulation standpoint? Like are you sort of managing through your breath so you don't sort of go too fight or flighty, or is that what you're talking about?
no, it's actually more in the staying. Um, it's a, I think I might be thinking about something a bit different. Um, but it's the understandings about how you put yourself into that particular state.
Okay.
Um, from the training. So how you start to you actually start to stress yourself out. Like you're really putting a lot of stress on your body when you're doing high intensity training.
Sure.
Um, so everything came into parallel for the fact of learning how to not put myself in that a stressful state of training to allow for that easier processing of what's just going on. Because when you do hit training, you're trying to think or talk to somebody, you just can't.
Sure.
Um, so it was learning what do you need to actually what with that growth mindset there about what you actually need to do to reduce the intensity, and how do you actually build things over to sustain you over a long period of time. And um, that comes down to how you built. I think that comes down heavily about how you filter your thoughts.
Yeah.
That,
You.
does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
I'm not sure if that.
Um,
Yeah, to me, trying to think back. I'm not sure if I did make a lot of sense then, but
I think I can summarize it. You you ultimately have the final say of how you feel about things. You choose your reaction to things, and you can make certain emotions more traumatic than they have to be,
yeah,
or you can manage that. Like you can get yourself worked up by things, or you can be chilled, and it's
yeah,
ultimately your choice, and that's a skill to learn, I think.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
and it's how long you can. Yeah, especially going to endurance stuff as well. It's learning how to sustain that. That's the over a long period of time, and that's with a lot of things. With when you live that day to day to day thinking, it's so short term that you're just trying to survive a day at a time, or an hour at a time, or even minutes at a time. When you're in a really getting really triggered in a like you have to get up and do a presentation. You're trying to survive every single second that you're up doing a presentation if you're not prepared. So
yep.
it's it's having changing your mindset from a short term thing to it's the like the infinite game that of Simon Sinek. Um, Instead of thinking as an infinite game, a finite game where it's got a set term of a set time, set rules, all those different things. If you think of it more of an infinite mindset where business, nobody wins in business. There's no rules about who wins and who compete when you out in business against each other. There's no rules about how you measure how your business is better than somebody else's. There's no winning in business. Um, with life, with survival, the surviving life. If you think with an infinite mind, you go, okay, what I'm going to do, what I've got to do to survive for my life is got to spend until the time I die, basically. And you're always trying to keep that. This is where the whole adapting to the current situation comes into is really important for um, if those that don't pivot get stuck and trying to have a way it's learning how to find a way to think that lasts lingers for long term to help build up that endurance that you can operate at a certain intensity for a long period of time and not burn out and allow yourself to refresh even while in that intense period although when the intensity starts to build up how to process everything and really reduce the time it takes to process everything becomes really really important there so um, that's the infinite mindset works for me both in business, in personal life, and in these endurance events as well. Rather than trying to go, okay, I've got to hit my target here. I'm going to go, okay, what do I need to do about this race over an entire period of time, and think of it from an internet perspective, infinite minded perspective.
Mhm. Is that a book that Sinek did?
Yeah, a book and a speech. So you can check that out on YouTube. The Infinite Game.
Infinite Game. That's it. He's an amazing speaker. Um,
Oh,
yeah, what I might do is I'll throw the link to that chat. I don't actually think I've seen it. I've seen it in like a blog or something. People sort of summarize it. And I've seen a lot of Simon Sinek's speeches. He's an amazing way of looking at the world. I think I read Leaders Eat Last, which was one of his books. That
yeah,
was very good.
yeah. I just finished up that again. I've read it twice now, and start with Wise. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, he's got a really interesting way of thinking about the world, and I think it's I think he's one of the ones who's sort of figured out millennials and
Yeah,
social media and sort of some of the things we need to do as a society to get through this transition period of all these technologies being new and our physiology hasn't caught up with
that's it.
a fucking flashing attention device in our hands
That's it. That's
for that
it.
time.
Well,
Um,
what I wanted to bring up, I've got two key points I've got two key points that I want to relate back to with that way of thinking, the linear thinking to those dots on the map. Then touch back on what we just mentioned about the filtering. If I could get you to bring up that PowerPoint, because this is one thing I really learned heavily exploring last year, because I didn't quite get to finish that one, was how I realized how I learned, and how this is a really important thing for when it comes to, I think, help with getting people through that outside their comfort zone into outside their comfort zone and learning something new. This is my own system as well. I talked to the psychologist, and he was actually quite impressed about this, and I was like, oh, I didn't really think it was anything out of this, but this is how I see the way I learn. And I called this the third step.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a really powerful way, and I'll explain why in a second. The first thing is to realize, have you know about the one step forward, two step back?
I mean, the saying, yeah.
Just saying one step forward, two steps back. That's what I realize that a lot of people do, is that whenever certain situations occur, is that they take one step forward towards something, they see an opportunity, they take one step forward, but they don't know how to approach it. Sometimes they take that two steps, they feel like they take two steps back. They try and work towards something new, and they take two steps back, and they just keep going through that same pattern. If I get you to just tap through the next slide. So that's basically what I want to start is at column 9 there. And it jumps up to column 10 in the green one. So that's taking one step forward towards something. If we go to the next slide,
Sorry, I'm just gonna
that's all right.
try and put us somewhere that works.
That's that taking that two steps back there now. So you can see that you finish up in column 8 after trying to go from column 10 down to column 8. If you go to the next slide, take one step forward again, but you end up in column 9. And if you go to the next slide, you go down to 7. And you keep going like that. And every side of interaction keeps going back and forward. And that's where things like insecurities come up, with self-doubt, all those different problems start to creep in. While you're trying to process everything that's going on, all those negative experiences occurring, you haven't processed them properly. You're trying to come to some conclusion about them. And this is where, like that, the feelings of failure start to creep in, and going, I'm not, or worthiness. I've tried to do all these things I haven't been able to succeed in, and I feel like I'm just keep going backwards in everything I'm doing. I don't feel anything, they get nothing out of it. This is a really big problem there, where people aren't learning from past mistakes.
Yep, I
And
see it a lot, man. Especially with nutrition. When trying to help
yes,
people with nutrition, there's a lot of self-sabotage and yeah.
it's a hard one there. And you try something new, and you try it, and you don't know why it didn't work in the first place, or you try it and just try. Yeah, it's one of those things there where you just keep going backwards, and you feel like you tried every single thing: diet, nutrition, weight loss, all those different things. They become um, really hard to start especially when you failed a few times, and you get that negativity there. You go, okay, in order to stay safe, I'm not going to go try and explore it again, because
Sure.
that feeling that you had previously, because it's
Yep.
going to start to reaffirm those
It's
insecurities,
there's
everything all
there's
related there.
a learned helplessness when
Yeah,
you try things and you repeatedly fail. You learn that trying is not the way to do things. So
yeah.
yeah, I
So
think
that's
there's a lot of that going on at the moment.
so this is where my third step comes into play.
Mhm.
And the way I explain it is,
The next one.
you take one step forward to test, you take two steps back to assess and evaluate, and then you take three steps forward to accept and or adopt.
Okay. Am I moving
So
down these?
so we move forward to that yellow one. So that's the step forward to test. So that's a stepping forward to test whatever it is you're doing. It can be this is on anything you're doing. Just taking that step forward into something.
Mhm.
taking that step forward, taking that acknowledgement that you're going to test something out. It's not going to take it on as a permanent thing, but you're taking that step forward to just test it out. Then you take a step back just to learn and evaluate from it. So it's like what you did with the message. You just took that step forward to look at the message, took that step back to evaluate the message,
Process it.
and then you take 3 steps forward to accept and or adopt. So then that's where you go, okay, I'm actually like what I've done, or like this thing going on. Um, I'm going to take it on, or you go, I actually didn't like it. This is why I didn't like it, and you accept that you don't like it, and you don't take it on. But regardless of what has happened, you've actually taken that step forward. You take those 3 steps forward because you've actually taken that time to learn why
Sure.
in the first place.
Sure.
And this is a really powerful thing that I really discovered when I tried to do um, I tried to do it just a whole week of vegetarian. Um, I couldn't.
That would have been fucking hell.
When it it wasn't so bad once I realized once I applied this thinking to it. The way I did it was I if something's outside your comfort zone, you whole try and just get back into that comfort zone. Just because if you're stressed, you want to stay in control of what's going on.
Sure.
So you're trying to stay in that control, stay with the known, and your current routine, your current diet
Hmm.
is that known. You know exactly what you like, what you don't like, so you stay within those bounds.
Hmm.
This process there is allows you to take that little step forward across your toe, put your toe across the line, and learn what you like about. If you're going to try it, when I was trying to take on the vegetarian, I just um, tried a few different things across 2 days, and that was it. Instead of spending a whole week trying to do, I just spent a few days trying to do that.
Sure.
Tried a few different things, worked out, okay, this is actually really simple, this meal to do. That's good, I'll take that on. These ones weren't that great, so I'll try and find something else. Um, but I took those steps forward just to test out a few different things. Spent a few weeks away, not actually trying to even think about what I was doing there. And that, then I tried it again without planning any dates. I just said, okay, I'll just do it now. And it was a lot easier just to try and do 4 days after going, okay, I already know a few meals that I can do. I'll do those on the first 2 days and spend those 2 days going, okay, cool. I'm going to now try something else for the next 2 days, and then added that on, added those different meals on top of those first two, and that was that step forward again, and then took that step back to, okay, what else did I learn from this, and just kept that same process going until I actually ended up taking a whole week of just doing vegetarian. Um, it wasn't hard to do after applying that sort of process.
So is the
Um,
idea that you don't sort of dive too fast into things? You sort of have a little bit of time to consolidate and work out, what's good and
yeah,
what's
it's
bad and
not so much what's good and what's bad. It's more the controlling those survival instincts, staying in control, trying to break the staying in control of things, allowing something to feel normal, adding something that's not normal into your normal, going, okay, it wasn't so bad, like these few things that I tried, um, and starting to bring more elements to it over, just starting to expand that. It's like that challenge I said before, just start stepping those cones out that little bit wider,
yep.
and progressively you just follow that same sort of pattern. Your stress instincts start to um,
Yeah.
come down a bit about trying to take on something so
Yeah.
big,
I, I'm
you're going to try a
I'm
drastic change.
definitely yeah, I'm definitely in agreement there. Like what I usually say to somebody if somebody's trying to change and say they're trying to overhaul shit, so they've gotten to a point where they're like, I'm fucking unhappy with myself. I've gotten too fat. I'm going up the stairs and I'm out of breath, so I need to overhaul everything. I'm like, okay, cool. What I want you to do is just worry about your exercise and keep it simple. Like go for a walk every day and maybe just do this, this, and this as well. But that's it. And they're like, oh, but what about the diet? I'm gonna cut all. I'm like, no, no, no. Just fucking, just just exercise. That's all I want you to do. Just keep it simple. And then you build a bit of habit, you build a bit of good momentum there, and then you go, right, let's throw something else in. Let's throw something else in. I think where a lot of people go wrong when they do things is they try to do everything at once and build this massive house of cards, and then you just need a little bit of wind, and the whole thing fucking blows over. And then you end
That's
up in
it.
that learned helplessness. You get back down to feeling like shit and feeling like a failure.
Going back to your defaults there. So, and what you can
Mm.
see from trying this method is that you're taking those steps back, but you're always moving forward. Those, if you keep going down through the images there, you're constantly moving forward. It doesn't matter whether it works or not, as long as you learn along the way.
Yeah, sure.
That's where your progress is. So you can say it didn't actually work, but this is why, and it may work in future.
Yep.
But if you at least got some of the details there, the finer details about why it didn't work, then it makes it a lot easier to try again in the future and go, okay, could have been conditions that just didn't work. There was other situations around that made it really hard to do. So
Yeah,
um,
I
yeah,
I like the way you treat the diet change as more like an experiment where you're a sample size of one, as opposed to just saying I'm gonna change. You go, I'm gonna play with this idea and I'm gonna sort of explore it and see what happens. And you capture data and you work out what's going on. These recipes were good, these were bad. So before you try to have an identity shift, you sort of explore the idea a little bit.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I think it's a good thing.
And
But I think,
that's where you can apply that in sort of in many different ways as well. That sort of that step there, it's with skills, it's the skill stack in there. So if you're learning particular skills, it's just that step forward, learn something. You can go away, procrastinate that, like that learning experience can just literally be procrastinating, let that sort of lesson sit on your mind for a bit of time,
yeah,
and then come back and then apply it again. And if you if you change the way the blocks are laid out, you start to go up, and that's your skill stacking there.
yeah. The other thing is in that growth mindset is there's this never-ending drive for optimization. So you're always
Yeah,
trying to find what can I improve, what can I improve, and just because something's good doesn't mean you shouldn't fucking tinker with it a bit and go, can it be better? So like you know, definitely don't have any weight issues. You perform very well physically. Um, so why would you need to why would you go vegetarian, assuming that it's not for ethical reasons? Um, because you're always tweaking. You're going, I'm
yeah,
good, but it could be better. Could be that little bit better. So let's give it a shot. And you're always optimizing, you know, everything.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. And yeah,
it's
because actually, yeah, because in that case, the reason for me trying that in the first case was actually watching Game Changers, and it was particularly around when they did the blood sample
Mhm.
and how thick the blood sample of when it came to having animal fats versus like vegetable fats.
Mhm.
Um, just that's because that's where uh, when you're processing oxygen, particularly in race day, um, your overall fitness is pretty much the way I've been able to look at it. It comes down to how well you're in control of your central nervous system, as well as how well you breathe.
Mhm.
Your oxygen efficiency there. So it's how efficient your oxygen is to process is how um, it determines your fitness. And if you go out too fast and you deplete your oxygen, then obviously that's not a good thing. But if you're able to process you stay in control of your limits and know where when you're starting to deplete oxygen, um, allowing your oxygen to flow better to take more in, all those sorts of things there. Um, that was what I really took out of that series.
Mhm.
Um, well, that episode there, and realizing, okay, that's if taking out all the other fats or making the blood cleaner come race day was going to be better. That's where I wanted to go with trying the vegetarian stuff. Is just what could I do to
Sure.
actually come race day, how to perform better from that. And every race since I've just smash a whole plate of veggies the night before. Just sweet potato, and pumpkin, and
Yeah, cool. Um,
that's it.
do you intentionally stay away from like the fibrous veggies, or is that just by chance that you've noted like all the starchy, carby ones?
Yeah, just by chance.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
know there's a little bit of like endurance wisdom around don't go too fibrous with the veggies just because they'll sit in your gut. Like it takes a couple of days to digest that stuff. So
Yeah.
once your gut slows down, but man, anything like carby, starchy is going to be massive
Yeah.
for helping. But just cleaning up your diet is huge. An interesting thing that you find with endurance athletes is they'll pretty much eat whatever the fuck they have to run faster. Um,
Yep.
and all the people that I interview and chat to, they all eat so many different things. And the really good athletes have usually tried vegan or they've tried this or they've tried that, and they go, I tried keto, I tried paleo, and they find what is optimal for them through trial and error,
Yep.
and that's where they sit. And like I know guys who have done, I know guys, Andrew um, Robinson in New Zealand, hardy Kiwi. Um, he's a really good. He's an ultra runner, and he's full vegan and never looked back. Like reckons he performs amazing on it. And then I've just
True.
chatted to guys who have gone vegan and done it for a month and said it was fucked. Worst thing I've ever done. Like
Yeah.
just the body just didn't tolerate it at all. So
Yeah. And
so
that
it's
and that's the way
interesting.
that it's that adoption there. It's like with keto, if you go straight into it, that really reactive, how your body reacts to it is really, um, yeah, it knocks people around the first time. Then when they come off it as well, it knocks it around. It, that this is where that same thinking applies. You just like slowly introduce it over time. You start to make those changes more subtly over a longer period of time,
Hmm.
and that's where I think that it's not so much shocking everything. It's you're allowing yourself to stay in control the entire time,
Sure.
and it
Sharon's
works.
just said, thank you so much for the inspo, Matty Day. I'll see you tomorrow, Matt Moore, for my run analysis. So looking forward to thinking fast. If you are
Perfect.
still on the live, Sharon, I will see you. Let's check my calendar. 10 a.m. tomorrow? 10 a.m. I'll see you at 10 a.m. at my place. Um, so, man, is there anything else that you wanted to close on? I know we had a couple of touch points that you sort of wanted to look at. Um,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
one of the things
one
you said.
one.
Sorry.
That's where you go.
No, you go. Sounds like you had
Oh,
something.
yeah. I was going to finish on the one thing I spoke to you about was value guided actions versus um, being goal driven.
Hmm.
I haven't, in all honesty, I haven't had a goal for nearly 12 months.
Hmm.
Um, and this was a big changer for me because I was quite often like goal driven and trying to work towards things, but not able to always achieve them. It was a struggle for learning why I wasn't achieving a lot of those. And this is where the biggest change up for information was for me was about learning those value guided actions versus being goal driven.
Hmm.
I think goals are important. Um, the trouble I find with them sometimes is when the goals are set and you start to become very tunnel vision towards them,
Hmm.
and you start to not notice everything else around that's going on. Andre Agassi was a very good example of that, where he got to the point of becoming number one tennis player in the world, very goal driven towards it, but he was burning a lot of people out around him just to get there. He got so determined to do that, but once he got there, he learned how to get there, but didn't know how to sustain being there because that was just his goal. It was just a finite thinking there just to achieve it, but not knowing what comes next.
Sure.
And so he had that drop off straight away um, after, and he bounced back after learning from it. But it became a really hard. It's a it's a hard sort of a thing to think outside of goals as one way of thinking, because
Hmm.
goals are really easy. When you set something towards it, you just work towards it. If you apply SMART goals, the simple, measurable, attainable. I can't remember what the R is.
Realistic,
Realistic,
timely.
timely, time-based goals, and they are really, really important if you focus around goals that way when you're trying to work towards something in that with that methodology there. Value guide actions is a bit different, where it's that going back to that finite versus infinite mindset. Value guide actions is what I use as a filter towards choices that I make. So I look at my values, and it took me a lot of learning to understand what they actually mean. But value guide actions, my personal values are like health, fitness, fun, adventure, challenging myself, and it's so long as you are doing something along those lines, that's enough. And they're related to fulfillment. So you're fulfilling your values there, something that you enjoy, something that means something to you outside of just a goal. It's hey buddy. I got just as much value out of doing a 5 minute run as I do out of a 20 kilometer. Oh, sorry, a 5 minute walk as I do out of a 20 kilometer run. Because all I'm doing is just going out and just doing something that's healthy there. That's all it is. Just doing something that's good for you there. And it took a little while to keep repeating that up to myself to fully understand and to explore what that actually means. And I had a lot of trouble trying to explain it or understand it. But the way my doctor explained to me was this: is a story of two boys, and they're going to a theme park. One of the brothers wants to get on a roller coaster really, really badly. The other one is just there to go along for the ride. On the way to the theme park to get onto this ride, their car breaks down, and they have to stop. Well, just the tire went flat. They had to replace the tire and spend the time there. The boy that really wants to get onto the roller coaster, so I get agitated that he wasn't able to get on that roller coaster, where the other brother was just standing around having a bit of fun, just found something to do in that meantime. Once the tire was fixed, they got back on the road, got to the theme park, lined up, and the line was really, really long. The brother that really wants to get on the roller coaster starts to get more agitated that he isn't on there yet, because that's what he really wants to do. And the other one just talks to the people in the line, just has a bit of a goof around there while waiting. Because of how long it's taken to get into the theme park, everyone's starting to get a bit hungry, so they stop and eat lunch first. The brother that really wants to get on the ride is not happy by this stage, where the other one is just happy to eat a burger and get on the ride whenever. Eventually they get to the ride, the lineup's still very long, and that boy is just really upset because you can see that the goal's right there, but he's not able to get on the ride yet. And the other brother, because hasn't been in that same agitated state, is still just being himself. When they finally get on the ride, the brother that's really want to get on it, he enjoys it, but it didn't live up to his expectations. And the other brother, just because he enjoyed just being there, loved it. And this may be a really simplistic way to explain it, but the brother that was determined to get on the ride had a set of goal just to get on that ride, and that's all he wanted to do, was just get on that ride. Everything that came up, every hurdle that came in his way, he had a lot of trouble just trying to get past. He just couldn't understand why. It was just so tunnel vision towards that ride that everything else was just annoying. The brother though that didn't mind not getting on that ride, he was just having fun. That was his value. That was just enjoying himself, having a bit of fun, adventure, doing whatever he could just to enjoy himself. When that brother finally got on the ride, he just loved it because that's just part of what he does. He just enjoys doing fun things. So it didn't matter about how exciting the roller coaster was. It could have been hyped up for any of that lead up. He just enjoyed being there, and that's the difference between values and goals. And hopefully that makes sense. Where all one wanted to just get on that ride. He was just so determined to hit that particular target, that goal. Where the other one's just as long as he's just doing something fun, that's all it was, and that's as um,
Yeah.
simple as it gets.
I I get clients to do this. I've got a values task that I get clients to do pretty regularly. I don't know if I've done it for you before, where it's basically
Like,
all these cards. There's a shitload of them, and you have very important, important, not important, and then you have all these different things: intimacy, challenge. So you have all these different cards. So this one is industry, and this one is comfort. And basically,
yeah,
what you do is you sort these values out. And you work out, eventually you whittle it down. There's all these different things like change, safety, simplicity, helpfulness, excitement, all these different
yeah,
things. And you work out what it is that you actually value, what it is that you actually care about. And then you come to a top 10 and you work out what are the top 10 things that I give a fuck about. And you prioritize them. And sometimes you go, there might be something that I want to change. So maybe I don't prioritize wealth, but I want to be wealthy. So maybe I should prioritize wealth. So you can sort of put that up a little bit further up your values. Anyway, you come to a top 10, and then what I'll do is I'll get clients to say, send me your top 10, send me a picture, send me the resolution of your phone, and I'll create a lock screen for you that lists your
mm,
values. So this is
yeah,
the latest one that I've got, just in Canva. But this was somebody, and they told me a quote that they wanted to put in, but these were their values: their growth, intimacy, challenge, mastery, adventure, wealth. So these were the things that they decided were the things that they cared about most. And then the idea behind it is, if you're going to make a decision, or you have to make a choice, which you do thousands of times a day, you look at your phone and you go, is it relevant to my top value, growth? And it
yeah,
might be it might not be. If it's not, what's the next thing? Intimacy. Is it relevant to intimacy? Is it relevant to challenge? Is it relevant to mastery? Is it relevant to adventure? And eventually you're going to get to a point where one of those things, it's going to be relevant. And then you're going to
yeah,
choose the option that goes more towards your values. So you sort of end up with this little values cheat sheet.
yeah.
And I've found it to be really, really effective for clients over the years. I don't know if I ever made a screen
I
background for you.
don't I don't think so, but I think I remember it coming up. I'm not sure if it was an Enduro before it or something around that time, the
We might have
start
been
of this year.
talking about it. We were talking about this stuff when we did that run around Enoggera,
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Enoggera Dam that
Yeah,
day. We were talking about this stuff, so I think I mentioned it then.
yeah,
But it's a really good thing. And look, I agree, man. You should be living to your values. I also think goals are important, but I
yeah,
also think you can't, if you um, just prioritize your goals over your values, that that path leads to destruction as well.
yeah, yeah. I think if you look at that, the Simon Sinek's golden circle where it's got the why, how, and what. If you're looking at it, values is that outside one. That's your big decision filter, and then it helps you set those goals, and then you got a target of actually like the sort of the result that you want to achieve at the end, out of everything there. So um, if you look at it as just more the overarching decision filter, that helps to get rid of a lot of the noise around what's going on. Then those goals become less intense. But you can, if you do it, you apply the SMART goal. You can. I only have it in like when I'm actually doing a training class. If I feel good in the morning, I might. If I'm doing cycling, I'll say, okay, sweet. I might try and aim for 13k in the half hour. Versus if I'm not feeling the greatest, I'm happy with 11. Just so I just rocked up. At least I'm here.
Mhm.
Sort of thing there. Or if I don't even put a goal down, I just try and just do the class and see what it is, and
Yeah.
it it comes back again to that intensity of how you sorry sorry that intensity of your training about how you find the balance with the harmony, I should say, between um, pushing yourself and being that less intense, you actually your mind becomes less intense about the thinking that goes on to require to um, achieve that result there. And
Mm.
it's just like adding time on a feat. You just the more time you spend just being less intense, the more you're actually going to absorb everything because you're not stressing yourself out, and it all just plays its part.
Mm. Definitely. What would you say to people who maybe are doing it a little bit tough at the moment and they want to start digging themselves out of it? Where do they start? What's the first thing that you can do?
That is a really, really good question. Um, One thing depends on it. All comes down to the situation, obviously. But one thing to look at is your active thoughts. I think is a really important place to start. And it's trying to, if you're in that bad position, you're in that fight or flight, trying to understand what's actually going on in your head is pretty much vital. I'll always recommend going to a psychologist versus trying to self-diagnose a lot of the time.
Sure.
But you can use simply writing things down to get that clearer picture about what's going on in your head.
Hmm.
Um, can be a really powerful place to start because you can start to if you just thoughts are just trying to make sense. If you think about that story, you're just trying to make sense of everything that's going on. Writing it down is going to help a lot to try and to get that story straight. Your thoughts might be you might be creating like 20, 30, 40, 50 sentences in your head, but when you try and write on paper, it only comes like two,
Hmm.
and it really helps to put in perspective of actually what's going on. So I think that's a really good place to start is simply writing things down, because whatever's going on, it's a starting point, and you can build on top of that information, and you can it might write it down for a period of time, and then later on write something else down. It could be completely irrelevant to that, but your active thoughts are trying to keep you safe.
Hmm.
Start with what's trying to keep you safe.
Yep. Yeah, and that'll start some momentum, which will probably turn into some more momentum.
That's
Um,
it. That's it.
Mate, the last thing you'd sent me, the last point was just your thoughts on OCR. Why you think OCR will take over the world?
Yeah. And I think it's going to be one of those interesting ones where a lot of sports are fairly simple. They're very a lot of it comes down to sometimes technique, sometimes endurance, but OCR's got elements that the way I word it to a lot of people to explain is that it's the most accurate representation of life in sport. It's hard,
Hmm.
where a lot of things everything in life is about doing things easy nowadays. You find simpler ways to do things, and with OCR being the most, if you look at it as that it's the most accurate representation of life in sport, everything that you come up, every obstacle you come up to, if you don't get through it, you fall off and you get a burpee penalty. That takes time to recover from that, to get up, and you stay stagnant for a period of time before you move on to that next. For that next obstacle, you fatigue yourself, and
Hmm.
you got the failure of the obstacle behind you, the burpee penalty, and then the fatigue that comes afterwards, and you're trying to build your momentum back up again. It's a lot harder to do that. Um, once it, that's where I think um, the power is going to be with changing people in life, is getting people into something like OCR, where they have something that's you can explain it so relevantly to any situation that somebody's going through a problem,
Yep.
that at its core is going to be what is going to be that driver, when people start to realize I think when people start to realize that.
Mate, you're literally preaching to the choir here. I fucking love this sport, man. I've made my whole life about it. It's yeah, it does incredible things for people, and I think it is very symbolic, um, in ways where life is just a whole lot of fucking suffering, um, just a
That's
whole lot
it.
of challenges that you face. and then you pick yourself up, and then you face another challenge, and the better you get at picking yourself up, the smoother a fucking run you're gonna have.
That's it. And if you each time you come to those obstacles, you don't want to fail it again. You learn to try and get through it, and that's all it comes down to. And that's you shorten the time that you spend having to do it. You become more efficient at it, and that's just it's all super skill. It's just skill building over that time.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And just learning to hit things head on instead of skirting around them and doing tough
Yeah,
things by choice. It's a good thing.
yeah, that's it. And the whole factor, the whole premise is that it's hard by design.
Hmm.
Like mentally, if you got a triathlete to come into OCR, I reckon they would just break. Like they could be the fastest runner, they could set a better time, they could be better at cycling, they could be better at swimming and everything. But just because the way that they train, that they're so rigid in their training style, where OCR for you train for every type of element. It's so hard to pick one way to train. It's still a learning experience about how to train properly for it. That you're constantly learning, you're constantly getting thrown in the deep end of every single challenge with it. And there's so many different ways you can approach the sport as well. You can do speed, you can do long distance, you can do um, the hurricane heats. You've got all different approaches to it that, um,
Yeah,
yeah, that make it really stand out and appeal to people that aren't wanting to take life easy. They want that challenge in life, but they're not getting that fulfillment elsewhere. And this is where um, this is something that can provide that fulfillment because it's so freaking hard.
yeah. I mean, I hope it takes over the world. Um, I hope it comes into the Olympics, which I think it will, because it'll make Brisbane at 2032 pretty interesting.
Oh yeah,
If it does. But
oh yeah.
Sharon, who I thought was going, but she's still here, says great perspective. Matty Day, I agree so much with what you say. Life is OCR is the most accurate representation of life there is. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
There's a lot of symbolism in it, for
yeah, and it
sure.
breeds a different like I think you said before, we're a different breed of crazy.
Oh yeah,
so,
oh yeah,
so it's all the good crazy people in one place. It's awesome.
for sure, for sure. They're my people. Um, Mate, is there anything you wanna say wrapping up? Um,
No,
Going down
yeah, it's
a lot of rabbit holes tonight. It's been a great chat. I knew it would be. I've had some pretty deep conversations with you, and I thought it was about time we have one where people watch us do it.
definitely, no, definitely. It's been a definitely been a learning experience. Like what we've touched on tonight is obviously um quite a number of different topics there, but it's really scratching the surface of a lot of the different things that are involved with it. There's a lot of deep things that I would take people through if I was going to sit down and talk with them about one particular thing. I would talk with um yeah, like I'm happy to take people out for runs or do something with them to help explain it, and always open for that. There, it's getting out and doing something like this. Like honestly, I don't like running. I'm still one of those people that don't like running, but it's one of those challenges that I go through to do this sport. It's part of that growth there, and I'm still not going to get to the point where I like running. I know that. If I don't run, I'm not actually disappointed. That's how I know I don't like running. Um, but I would take people out for a run because it's going to challenge them. It's also going to challenge me, and that's where I like to talk about these sorts of topics as well because it's a great way to do it. So anyone who's up for a run or doing some hard training sessions, like a 3-4 hour training session, um, that's a
Matthew, man.
that's what that's where I'm happy to have these sorts of conversations and explain some of these in a bit more deep depth. But I'm also to add on top of that, what we've talked about tonight is I'm actually um, writing a big speech, so like a 40 to 60-minute speech on a lot of the topics we talked about tonight, and it's called Redefining Depression, helping to understand all these different things and how to see depression differently from instead of it saying being my depression, my anxiety, my trauma to um, the things that I've gone through, my inability to be able to process this is resulted in depression to change the way people perceive a lot of these issues, because once you change that perspective, it makes a massive difference. So
Sure.
these are all topics that I'll be talking about in that. A few of those topics that I'll be talking about in that speech, and yeah, so I don't have a date yet, but I've got got an idea about a big speech night where it touches on a male perspective, female perspective, a soldier's perspective, so returned soldier from the Afghan war, and it's going to be with one of our First Nations people about the trauma that's been faced over the last 230 odd years, and helping people understand exactly what that trauma has the scars that it's left. Because I think that's one of the missing pieces in the discussion,
Yeah.
the education there. So
Well,
yeah,
mate,
that's going to be
let
next
us
for
know
me.
when it's
Yeah,
happening, buddy, and I'll come watch. And mate, keep being a good force in the world. You're helping people, man. We need more empathy,
right.
and we need more people who talk and help everyone rise up rather than everyone try and pull each other down like crabs in a fucking bucket. So it's
That's it.
Gary said we're not crazy. It's the people that don't do it that are crazy. I
That's
agree.
it.
Andy says who's going to come first at obstacle hell?
Oh, 100%. Yep. I've got to take that off. Take that off you guys. You guys smashed us at the BTU and the trail run.
So he's coming for you.
Yep. Yep.
Mate,
100%.
it's been awesome having a chat, dude. Thank you for your time. I'll let you know when I've uploaded this to YouTube, if you want to share it around, or you can just share the Facebook link.
No, perfect. That'd be
But
great.
yeah,
And also
cheers.
thank you to yourself as well for all you do for the OCR community and all the people around to help
Pleasure.
out. So we all much
Pleasure.
appreciate it. It's
Absolute
been
pleasure.
awesome.
You stick around. Thank you for everyone for tuning in for a good length chat. We're not quite nudging on the record set by Jim Bullard, but but she was a good old chat. So cheers for hanging around, guys, on a Sunday arvo. And
I
Matt, if
appreciate it
you
all.
stick around, I'll end the live, but you hold on for a sec. See you guys.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.